Chapter 1. The Signal That Shouldn't Have Been. The elder races had not known war for centuries. From the glittering cities of the core worlds to the sprawling trade hubs orbiting neutron stars, peace was not just a treaty, it was an identity. The Great Concord had bound dozens of civilizations together, ending the age of rival empires and establishing a council whose influence stretched like a lattice of calm across the galaxy. That lattice never reached the outer rim. The rim was a tangle of half-mapped systems, pirate enclaves, and species that had never been brought under the Council's banner. Some were feral empires clinging to the old ways. Others were fledgling civilizations barely able to light their own stars with fusion drives. And then there was Earth. No one in the core truly understood the humans. The archivists called them a paradox species, as capable of unspeakable savagery as they were of impossible compassion. They could wage wars that burned continents, then turn around and rebuild the homes of their former enemies. To the peaceful races, this was unnatural. To the aggressive ones, it was unnerving. The Concord's decision had been unanimous. Avoid them. No trade, no contact, no signals. Let their strange world spin in silence. So Earth expanded outward in ignorance, its colony fleets pushing into empty space, never knowing that just beyond the black, entire civilizations were pretending not to see them. Far away from Sol, in the border fringe between Elder Territory and the chaotic Outer Rim, an outpost floated in the shadow of a dying red star. It was nothing more than a listening station, a spider web of antennas wrapped around a cluster of habitat rings. Its commander, Vral Tin, was a veteran of a war so ancient it no longer had an official name. His orders were simple: monitor the rim, report pirate activity, and never provoke. But that morning, the sensors sang with something far worse than pirates. The aggressor races, long fractured by blood feuds and territorial wars, had united. Their fleets poured out of the void like a storm front, black hulls bristling with rail batteries and plasma emitters. The outpost's defense grid was little more than ceremonial. It folded in under an hour. "Send the call for aid," Vral Tin barked. The station shuddered under another impact. "Yes, Commander," shouted Junior Comms Officer Jewel Keir, fingers flying over the holographic interface. In his panic, the young technician failed to set the proper transmission filters. The SOS went out, not just to the secure Elder network, but across every comm band, in every direction, into every star system within 100 light-years. On a colony ship far from home, UNS Pathfinder, Captain Elena Mora was halfway through a navigation review when her comms officer frowned. Captain? I think you'll want to hear this." Static hissed, then a voice, ragged, alien, and desperate. "We are under attack. Coordinates. All forces respond. Please, anyone." The bridge went silent. This was no human transmission. The cadence, the intonation, even the underlying harmonics. Alien, but the coordinates were close. Too close. Mora's brow furrowed. "How close?" 3.2 light-years from the Halverson Drift, the comms officer replied. "That's practically next door." She hesitated only a moment. Humanity's colonies had barely begun to knit together, their fleets small and underarmed compared to the theoretical capabilities of the civilizations they imagined must exist. But Mora also knew what Earth's old navies had done when a distress call came through, from anyone. "Plot an intercept course," she said. "All ships in formation. We're going to see who needs help." At the outpost, the Elder defenders fought with the calm precision of trained veterans, but the numbers were hopeless. The aggressor fleet closed in, fighters swarming like insects. Then, from the edge of the battle space, new contacts flared on sensors. Sleek, sharp-prowed vessels, their hulls painted in deep naval gray, flanked by smaller escort craft. The newcomers didn't hesitate, their railguns lit up the void. The Elder defenders stared in disbelief. The newcomers fought like predators. They didn't match the fire patterns of any known Concord fleet. They weren't cautious. They weren't diplomatic. They cut into the enemy lines with brutal, surgical aggression. And worst of all, from the Elder perspective, they were winning. Vral Tin watched one of the gray ships barrel through a formation of enemy gunboats, shields flaring, return fire precise and unrelenting. A thought he had hoped to never entertain crept into his mind. Humans, the species they had agreed never to awaken. The species whose wars had frightened even the most aggressive races. the species they had avoided for centuries. Now they were here, and they had come to answer a call that had never been meant for them. Chapter 2: The Strangers in Gray. The battle lasted another 27 minutes. The aggressor fleet broke under the sudden human assault, their formations collapsing as railgun slugs punched through their heavy cruisers and mass driver rounds shredded their fighter wings. What remained fled into the black, their retreat engines burning hot and fast. Silence fell over the wreck-strewn void. The outpost floated in a slow, wounded tumble, its habitat rings venting atmosphere into space. On the Elder command deck, Vral Tin stood among flickering holograms, his limbs stiff with both injury and disbelief. He had expected rescue, perhaps from the core, perhaps from another border post, but not from this, not from the one species they had all agreed never to contact. "Commander," one of his officers croaked, clutching at a cracked mandible, "their flagship is hailing us." Vral Tin stared at the comm display. The human emblem, a stylized eagle over a star field, rotated slowly in the transmission window. Every instinct told him not to answer. But his station was bleeding out into the void, and his crew would die without outside aid. Patch them through. The screen flickered to reveal a woman in a deep gray uniform, her face framed by the flicker of damage control lights. She had a commander's poise, her gaze level and steady. "This is Captain Elena Mora of the UNS Pathfinder. We picked up your distress call. You're losing life support on multiple decks. We have medics and repair teams standing by." Vral Tin found himself staring at her eyes, Predator's eyes, focused, calculating. "This is Commander Vral Tin," he said slowly, voice rumbling through the translator. "You are human." "Last I checked," Mora replied without hesitation. There was no shame in her tone, no apology for existing, just the statement of fact, as if the galaxy's silent quarantine of her kind had never been a factor. Within minutes, boarding shuttles from the Pathfinder and her escorts latched on to the outpost's docking collars. The first humans through the airlocks were armored, not ceremonial guards, but combat-ready personnel in matte black exosuits. They moved with a soldier's efficiency, their rifles sweeping each corridor before motioning medics forward. To the Elders, the humans looked more like predators than any species they had ever seen. Their armor seemed grown for war rather than peace, their weapons designed with unapologetic lethality. Vral Tin met them halfway down the main access corridor. Captain Mora removed her helmet as she approached, her dark hair tied back in a no-nonsense knot. "Your people are stabilized," she said. "Our engineers are patching your life support grid. We'll have full pressure in 20 minutes. Vral Tin struggled for words. "You responded. Why?" She frowned slightly as though the question itself was strange. "You sent a distress call. Someone needed help." "That call was not meant for you," he said, the translator flattening the weight of his voice. Her reply came without a pause. "Didn't matter." In the background, human engineers were already at work, sparks flying as they welded new support beams into the damaged ring. Medics moved among the wounded, their medkits bulging with both alien and human-designed equipment. The elder officers watched in silence, exchanging uneasy glances. They had always feared what would happen if humanity reached them. They had imagined fleets burning across the stars, wars without end. But these humans, these predators, had arrived not as conquerors, but as rescuers. And yet, even as Vral Tin watched them work, he couldn't shake the unease. The aggressor fleets had been tearing through the Concord's border worlds for years, slowly, methodically. The Elders had never been able to drive them back so decisively, but the humans had. In less than half an hour. Before the human crews withdrew, Mora stood with Vral Tin on the outpost's observation deck, looking out at the field of wreckage. "They'll be back," he said. "I know," she replied, "and next time they'll bring more ships." Vral Tin hesitated, the question burning in his mind. "Will you answer again?" She gave him a small, almost wolfish smile. "Commander, when we decide to show up, we don't stop until the job's done." Chapter 3. Predators in the Dark. The Karak Dominion War Council met in the shadowed command pit of the dreadnought Bloodtide. Massive screens displayed tactical replays of the battle, frame by frame, kill by kill. The Dominion had expected an easy conquest of the Elder outpost. Their alliance of Rim war clans had been forged for one purpose: to push the elder races back toward the core, to tear down their stagnant peace. But instead of a quick slaughter, they had been driven into retreat by something new. Admiral Varnak, his chitinous armor clicking with every shift, gestured toward the playback with one jagged claw. "Freeze it there. Magnify." The holo zoomed in on one of the gray warships, its forward rail batteries still glowing white-hot as it punched through the Dominion's right flank. "That vessel," Varnak growled, "took down 3 of our cruisers in under 90 seconds. Look at the maneuver profile. It rammed through a screen of gunboats, shredded them, and kept firing. No fear, no hesitation. I want to know who they are." His intelligence chief, Vogt, spoke up, her voice rasping through her mandible plates. "They are not on any Elder registry. Hull configuration is unlike any known ship in the Concorde's fleets. No trade signatures, no diplomatic records." "Then they are mercenaries," snarled one of the war clan leaders. Vogt shook her head. "Negative. No mercenary group operates with this level of coordination." And she tapped a control, bringing up thermal imaging of boarding actions. "They sent troops into the outpost before securing the sector. That's not standard. Not for the Elders. Not for us." Varnak leaned closer, mandibles flexing. "Who are they?" Vogt hesitated. "We pulled linguistic patterns from their comm traffic, cross-referenced against old RIM data caches." She looked up, her gaze almost wary. "They're called—" The room went quiet. "Humans," repeated Varnak slowly, testing the word like a blade's edge. "The name means nothing to me." "It should," Vogt replied. "Long ago, some of our scouts picked up transmissions from an isolated system in the far outer rim. We intercepted their own history feeds." She shifted the holo to grainy footage. Black and white wars, city fires, soldiers charging through trenches. "They are different. They wage war against themselves for reasons that make no sense. Territory, ideology, pride, and when they win, they rebuild what they destroyed. Then they do it again." The war clan leader scoffed. "Primitive savages." "No," Vogt said sharply. "Predators. They evolved on a death world. Their stories are full of them turning hopeless battles into victory, or fighting on when victory is impossible. They do not stop because of odds. They stop because everyone else is dead." Varnak considered this, his eyes fixed on the image of the human warship. "They fought us today with only a handful of ships. What happens if there are more?" No one answered. Finally, Vogt spoke, her voice low. "Admiral, the Concorde avoided them for a reason. They feared what would happen if humans entered the wider war, and now they've seen us." Varnak's claw traced the edge of the display, the faintest tremor betraying his unease. "Then we will have to break them before they decide to come for us." Chapter 4. The Question of Involvement. The Pathfinder and her escorts rode in slow formation toward the colony of New Horizon, their holds heavy with wounded Elder crew and salvaged data cores from the shattered outpost. Captain Mora sat in her ready room, reviewing after-action reports. Hull scoring on Pathfinder's port side, railgun coil wear at 62%, 2 pilots wounded, 1 in critical condition. Her XO, Commander Hal Bishop, leaned against the bulkhead, arms folded. "We jumped into someone else's war, Elena. You know that, right?" She looked up, one brow raised. "We answered a distress call." Bishop shrugged. "The board back on Earth might not see it that way. They've been pushing to keep our expansion quiet. No contact, no diplomacy, just settle empty systems and keep our heads down." Mora closed the datapad and sat back. "That's what we've been doing for years, Hal. And it's only kept us in the dark about what's really out here. We've got aggressor fleets burning down stations 3 light years from our nearest colony. You think they'll stop at an invisible border?" When the Pathfinder made orbit around New Horizon, the news spread fast. For the first time, the people of the colonies saw living, breathing aliens. Not in theory, not in science broadcasts, but in med-bay stretchers and makeshift triage wards. The Elders were tall, narrow-limbed, their eyes deep-set and shimmering in unnatural colors. Most were wary, some openly afraid, watching the humans who moved around them with easy authority. Governor Asha Liang, civilian leader of the colony, convened an emergency assembly. Mora stood at the front of the chamber, recounting the battle. "They weren't ready for us," she said, voice steady. "They've been fighting this war for years and losing. We hit the enemy once, just once, and they broke. I'm telling you now, if they regroup and hit Elder space again, They might come for us next. An older counselor stood, adjusting his spectacles. Captain, humanity has no alliances here, no obligations. This isn't our war. You said yourself these elders have been avoiding us for centuries. Why should we spill our blood for them? Mora's gaze swept the chamber. Because sooner or later, someone will send out another call for help. And if we ignore it, don't think for a second they'll ignore us when we're the ones burning. Across the colony's secure commnet, a very different conversation was unfolding. In a private encrypted channel, Commander Vral Tin spoke with a representative of the Concord's core. You say they are human, the core delegate said, their voice tinged with alarm. Are you certain? Certain, Vral Tin replied. They answered without hesitation. They fight with precision and ferocity unlike any I have seen since the Unification Wars. And they won. The delegate's image flickered. Then you must listen carefully. This war with the Rim aggressors must be resolved before they decide to fight in it. If the humans commit themselves, there will be no going back. Once they smell blood, the galaxy will change, and not in ways the Concord can control. Vral Tin's mandibles flexed. He had seen the wounded humans carrying his people to safety. He had seen them patch elder bulkheads without asking for payment, and he had seen them tear through the enemy like wolves among herd beasts. I think, he said slowly, the galaxy has already changed. Chapter 5, The First Strike. 3 weeks after the Pathfinder returned to New Horizon, human space was still buzzing with rumors. The official Colonial Board statements downplayed the battle. Minor skirmish, assistance to a damaged station, but the footage told another story. Gun camera feeds of gray warships carving through alien fleets were spreading through private channels. That was when the Karak Dominion made their move. Admiral Varnak's fleet translated out of slip space on the edge of the Halverson Drift, well inside human-claimed territory. Their orders were simple: destroy infrastructure, send a message, retreat before serious resistance could form. They hit the mining colony of Atlas Station first. Docked freighters were torn apart before they could break moorings. Orbital habitats burned, venting air and light into the void. Civilian distress calls flooded every channel, and then the Dominion fleet jumped again, deeper. On UNS Valiant, Commodore Nathan Reeve had been reviewing readiness drills when the attack reports came in. The Valiant was a heavy cruiser, its escort screen a mix of older destroyers and a single carrier group. It wasn't a full battle fleet, but it was enough. Slipspace intercept, Reeve ordered. We're not waiting for reinforcements. The fleets met in the shadow of the gas giant Eridani Beta. Dominion warships opened fire first, their plasma lances cutting through the dark like molten spears. The Valiant's shields flared white, absorbing the first salvo before the human fleet answered. Reeve's voice was calm over the fleet net. All ships, focus fire, aim center mass, make them regret they ever heard of us. The reply was a storm. Railguns thundered, flinging tungsten rods at near-relativistic speeds. Missile barrages burst among the enemy ranks, warheads guided by adaptive targeting AIs that adjusted in microseconds. Dominion cruisers folded under the onslaught, their armored hulls peeling open like fruit under a blade. From the Blood Tide's vantage, Admiral Varnak watched the impossible happen. Again. Humans did not hang back, did not probe for weaknesses. They punched straight through, trading damage for position, turning every collision into an opportunity. One Dominion destroyer tried to ram a human carrier. Instead of retreating, the carrier's escort destroyer matched its vector, dumped its remaining missiles point blank, and tore both ships apart in a fireball that lit the gas giant's clouds. Varnak had seen brutality before, but this was different. These humans didn't just fight to win, they fought to break their enemy's will. The Dominion retreated for the second time in a month. Hours later, Reeve walked the Valiant's flight deck past rows of fighters being refueled and patched. Reporters from New Horizon were already calling the battle the Eridani lesson. Reeve didn't smile at the name. He knew what it really was. The first time humans had killed another spacefaring species in direct combat, and the galaxy had been watching. Chapter 6, The Council's Dilemma. The Concord Chamber of Civilizations was rarely a place of raised voices. It was designed for calm debate, tiered balconies of crystalline seating circling a central speaking platform, illuminated by shafts of soft starlight filtered through the station's dome. Today, the air was sharp with tension. Delegate Saren of the Cathari stepped onto the platform, her translucent crest trembling with agitation. 2 Dominion fleets have been routed in less than a cycle. Not by us, not by our allies, by humans. A ripple of murmurs swept through the chamber. They were meant to remain isolated, Saren continued. That was the agreement. The quarantine has been our safeguard for centuries, and now, due to a careless border outpost and an unfiltered distress call, the one species we feared above all others is on the battlefield. From one of the upper balconies, Elder Yalith of the Archivists rose, his many-jointed fingers steepled. Let us not forget the facts, Delegate. The humans intervened because no one else did. They saved Commander Vral Tin's outpost. They saved our people. And in doing so, Saren snapped back, they have shown the Rim aggressors what they are capable of. Every warlord, every pirate, every power-hungry fool in the fringe will now see humanity as a challenge to test or a threat to destroy. Do you want to see what happens when humans stop helping and start hunting? Vral Tin stepped forward, his carapace still scarred from the battle. They did not ask for payment. They did not demand territory or tribute. They repaired our station, cared for our wounded, and returned to their colonies. Delegate Saren's voice was cold. Perhaps they are patient predators. Some hunts take time. Vral Tin's mandibles flexed. Or perhaps, he said, we have mistaken strength for malice. High above them, the council speaker brought the chamber to order with a resonant chime. The Concord will not take official action at this time. But, the speaker's multifaceted eyes swept the chamber, we will prepare. Contingency plans are to be drawn. Should humanity's involvement escalate, we will be ready. The decision was recorded, but not everyone in the chamber left satisfied. Some would leave plotting quiet alliances, others whispering of preemptive measures. And in the shadows of the council's highest balcony, a cloaked figure turned to leave, a message already forming for an interested party in the Rim. Chapter 7. Calculations and Gambits. Rimward Dominion Fleet Flagship, Bloodtide. Admiral Varnak's War Council had gathered again, but this time the tone was sharper, almost desperate. The defeat at Eridani Beta had not only cost them ships, it had cost them prestige. The other Rim powers had begun whispering that the Dominion's united fleet was not invincible. Varnak jabbed a claw toward the holomap. The humans are the problem. They do not fight like the Elders. They do not retreat like the Elders. Every time they engage, they break our momentum. Vokt, his intelligence chief, stepped forward. We cannot match them directly, not yet, but there are others who can help us for a price. The holomap shifted, revealing the jagged outline of a rogue polity known only as the Krith Accord. Smugglers, mercenaries, weapons engineers exiled from the core. Their fleets were ragged but dangerous, their tech unpredictable. They hate the Elders, Vokt continued. If we frame this as a war to stop human expansion, they may join us, and if they do, her mandibles clicked in something like a smile, we can bleed the humans before they ever reach full strength. Varnak's gaze lingered on the map. Send the offer. Make it generous. Galaxy has tolerated the Elders' peace for too long. The humans will be the wedge that breaks it. Corward. New Horizon Colony, UNS Pathfinder. Captain Mora was in the colony's Central Council Hall when the envoy arrived. The figure was tall and slender, skin like living quartz, wrapped in a shimmering diplomatic mantle. She bowed with flawless precision. I am Talion of the Concord, she said, voice soft but resonant. I come to extend gratitude. Mora folded her arms. You mean for saving one of your stations? Yes, Talion said smoothly, and to offer an understanding. The galaxy beyond your colonies is complicated. Wars, politics, histories older than your species' written word. You are new to this expanse. It would be wise to remain within your sphere. The Concord will see to your protection. Mora tilted her head. Protection or containment? Talion's lips curved in what might have been a smile. Why not both? The council members shifted uncomfortably. Mora's reply was flat. We didn't ask for permission to help, and we won't ask for it next time. The envoy's expression didn't change, but something in the crystalline depths of her eyes hardened. Then I hope, Captain, that your people are prepared for the consequences of being seen. Chapter 8. Lines Crossed. The Dominion-Krith alliance moved like a shadow along the Concorde's outer frontier. They didn't challenge human fleets. Not yet. They went after the weakest elder systems, trade stations, mining colonies, agricultural worlds, places where the defenses were thin and the response times slow. One by one, outposts went silent. Concorde Chamber, 3 weeks later. Delegate Saren's tone was sharp as she addressed the council. These are temporary losses. The humans must not be allowed to believe they are our saviors. If we call for their help now, they will not leave once the war is over. Vral Tin's mandibles clicked in frustration. We are bleeding systems, and the humans have already offered assistance. You reject it out of fear. Do you not see what the Dominion is doing? They are avoiding humans precisely because they know what will happen if the two sides meet again. The Concorde will endure, Saren replied coolly. We have endured before. Vral Tin said nothing more, but the thought sat heavy in his mind. Not against this. Outer Rim. Agricultural world Vessen Prime. From high orbit, the human merchant vessel Solar Venture watched the battle unfold. Below, the green plains of Vessen Prime were split by smoke trails. The planet's few orbital defense stations were already crumbling under concentrated plasma fire. The local defense fleet, small patrol cutters and a pair of aging frigates, had been drawn away days ago by a feint near the system's jump point. On the surface, sprawling agro-complexes burned. The population had no hardened shelters, no shield grids. They were farmers, not soldiers. Captain Juno Rains, master of the Solar Venture, opened a tight beam channel to the UNS Pathfinder. Sending you live feed, she said grimly. Concorde isn't here. Nobody's here. They're hitting civilians, and there's nothing stopping them. On Pathfinder's bridge, Captain Mora didn't hesitate. All ships in range converge on Vessen Prime. This is a general order. We're going in, whether they want us there or not. The intervention. The Dominion-Krith fleet was in the middle of orbital bombardment when the humans arrived. Pathfinder's escorts dropped from slip space in tight formation, launching fighter wings before the enemy could adjust. Railgun slugs tore into the lead Krith destroyer, ripping it apart before its shields could fully cycle. Human missile spreads tracked and destroyed landing craft mid-descent, scattering burning debris across the upper atmosphere. Commodore Reeves' voice cut across the fleet channel, steady and cold. Target warships first, then troop landers. If they're in range of a farm, they're already too close. On the surface, Vessen Prime's citizens looked up to see gray warships carving across the sky, intercepting enemy dropships in fireballs that lit the clouds. By the time the Dominion-Krith force retreated, a quarter of their fleet lay in ruin. The fields of Vessen Prime still burned, but its people lived. Concorde Chamber, days later. The footage from Vessen Prime spread faster than the council could contain it. Vral Tin stood in the chamber as Saren demanded to know why humans had been allowed to operate freely in Concorde territory. They were not allowed, Vral Tin replied. They came because we would not, and the people of Vessen Prime will remember who saved them. So will the Rim. No one in the chamber dared say it aloud, but the truth was clear. The humans had earned something far more dangerous than territory or tribute. They had earned loyalty. Chapter 9. Fear and Relief. Vessen Prime had survived, but the stories spreading through the frontier were not clean tales of rescue. In the burned-out shells of agrodomes, survivors whispered of human warships that had fired without pause, their guns tracking enemy ships into the atmosphere and vaporizing them mid-fall. They spoke of fighters pursuing retreating bombers through cloud cover, cutting them to pieces before they could clear the skies. The humans had not simply driven the enemy away. They had destroyed them, utterly, without hesitation. In the border system of Kelren, a council of local elders met in the shadows of their trade hall. They fought like predators, one merchant captain said, her eyes darting to the security feed as if the humans might overhear. No warning, no attempt to disable. Every strike was meant to kill. And yet, another said quietly, they saved Vessen Prime. They didn't even ask for payment. The hall fell silent at that, because for all the fear the humans inspired, the uncomfortable truth was that the Concorde had not come when Vessen Prime called. The humans had. UNS Pathfinder, Captain's Log. They're afraid of us, even the ones we've saved. Can't blame them. We don't fight like they do. No warning shots, no half measures. When we see civilians under attack, we go in to end the threat, permanently. We've stopped asking if they want our help. Some will still turn us away, and that's fine. But if we see another Vesen Prime, we're not standing by. We'll fight to protect the innocent. Concord law be damned. In the weeks after Vesen Prime, human patrols began quietly shadowing trade routes, mapping rim incursions, and slipping into battle zones without announcing themselves. They did not claim systems. They did not plant flags. They simply fought and left survivors behind to decide for themselves what to think. On some worlds, the sight of a gray-hulled human warship brought cheers. On others, it brought uneasy silence. But all of them knew one thing. If the innocents were in danger, the humans would come. And when they came, the killing would not stop until the enemy was gone. Chapter 10. Misread Intentions, Dominion War Council, Blood Tide. Admiral Varnak's compound eyes studied the latest intelligence reports. Fleet dispositions along the Concord's frontier were shifting. More patrols, more fortified jump points, a tighter web of communication relays. And in scattered pockets of the frontier, Dominion scouts reported sightings of human warships operating dangerously close to Elder convoys. To Varnak, the meaning was obvious. They are preparing to unite, he said to the assembled warlords. The humans and the Concord will soon be one force. If that happens, our campaign is over before it truly begins. Vokt, his intelligence chief, bared her fangs in agreement. We cannot allow it. We strike now, before they coordinate. An all-out offensive against the core. Shatter the Elder heart before their new predator ally arrives in force. The chamber erupted in growls, hisses, and thudding fists. War was what the Dominion had been built for. The Krith mercenaries watching from the shadows simply smiled. An invasion of the core would be a payday they could retire on, if they survived it. Concord Central, High Council private session. The speaker's voice was heavy with reluctant concession. The humans have acted consistently. They intervened to protect non-combatants. They have not sought territory or tribute. It is time we speak with them directly. Delegate Saren's crest flared in agitation. Speak, yes, but to seek their aid, never. Once invited in, they will never leave. Elder Yalith leaned forward, his tone patient. And if the Dominion's invasion reaches the core before we are ready, pride will not stop their fleets. Saren's voice sharpened. We can rally our own. The humans may listen to words, but if we give them cause to take up our fight, the galaxy will learn what they truly are. The speaker silenced them with a resonant chime. Very well, we will send an envoy to open dialogue. Aid will not be requested, only understanding. UNS Pathfinder en route to Concord Station. Atria Captain Mora read the message twice, then handed it to XO Bishop. They want to open diplomatic relations. Bishop gave a humorless chuckle. Diplomatic relations with the same people who've been avoiding us for a century? Guess the Vesen Prime thing rattled them, Mora said. But note the wording. They don't want help. They want to talk. And what do you want to do? Bishop asked. Mora looked out the viewport, where the stars drifted past in cold silence. We'll talk, but if the Dominion's moving on the core, we're going to be caught in it whether they want us there or not. Chapter 11. War arrives early outer core defense perimeter. Concord System Varnis. The Dominion Krith fleet emerged from slip space like a tidal wave of fire. Hundreds of warships, Dominion heavy cruisers at the center, Krith strike craft fanning ahead in darting, predatory arcs, pushed straight into Elder territory. Varnis defense grid lit the void with return fire, but the sheer mass of the assault crushed their formation within minutes. By the time reinforcements from neighboring systems began to rally, the orbital yards over Varnis were already burning. Concord Station Atria, diplomatic deck. Captain Mora stood across the polished table from Envoy Talion. Around them, Elder aides and human officers tried to mask the tension with polite stillness. This is a first meeting, Talion said in her resonant voice. A gesture of her comm implant flared to life, interrupting her mid-sentence. The normally unreadable lines of her crystalline features shifted sharply. What is it? Mora asked. Talion looked at her. The Dominion has breached the core perimeter. They are striking in force. The human officers exchanged glances. Mora felt the weight of the moment settle like a stone in her chest. Concord Emergency Command Chamber. Hollow feeds filled the air. Varnis burning, coreward trade fleets scattering, planetary defense shields shattering under concentrated bombardment. We need every available fleet, an elder admiral barked. Even outer sectors must recall their patrols. Vral Tin, present as a border commander, saw his chance. And the humans? Saren was quick to answer. We have not asked for their intervention. They're already here, Vral Tin countered, gesturing toward Mora and her staff standing in the viewing gallery. If we delay, we hand the core to the Dominion. The speaker hesitated, mandibles flexing in indecision. This was not how the talks were to proceed. UNS Pathfinder. Later that cycle, Mora stood on her bridge as reports streamed in. Multiple core systems were falling simultaneously. Dominion forward elements were pushing deeper than any invasion in centuries. She keyed the fleet channel. All human ships in Concord space, set course for Varnus sector. Concord hasn't asked for help, but if the core falls, the frontier worlds are next, including ours. Bishop looked at her from the command rail. You think they'll thank us? Mora shook her head. I think they'll survive. That'll have to be enough. As Pathfinder and her escort surged toward the war zone, the elders watched from their command feeds. Some felt relief, some felt dread, but all of them understood one truth. The moment human warships entered the core battle line, there would be no more ignoring them. Chapter 12. The Real Fleet. The Pathfinder fleet dropped into the Varnus sector to find chaos. Dominion and Krith warships were driving straight through Elder lines, using sheer mass to crush every pocket of resistance. The Concord command net was a storm of overlapping orders and emergency retreats. Mora's arrival brought a rare moment of focus, the gray human warships cutting into the enemy flanks with their usual precision and brutality. Concord Command Flagship. Bridge Commander Vral Tin watched the tactical holomap as human ships began forcing the Dominion's left wing to break apart. The speaker of the Concord appeared beside him, her crystalline form glowing in the dim bridge light. They are effective, she admitted reluctantly. Vral Tin's mandibles twitched. You haven't seen anything yet. Moments later, a comm request came through from Pathfinder. Talion, the Concord's envoy, accepted the link. Captain Mora's image appeared, her voice calm despite the battle raging around her. We're holding the flank for now, but the real punch is on its way. The war fleet from the Sol system is en route to join us. Talion tilted her head, confused. War fleet? This is not your war fleet? Mora gave a faint, humorless smile. No, what you're seeing here is just our frontier defense group, mostly colony-built ships and a few core detachments. The war fleet is different. Different how? Talion asked, wary. Built for one purpose, Mora said evenly, to end wars. The bridge of the Concord flagship fell silent for a beat. Vral Tin's mind raced. If this was not their main fleet, then humanity had been holding back all along. Every ferocious strike, every decisive kill the elders had seen was only the work of their scouts. The speaker's voice was low. How many ships? Mora's reply was simple. Enough. The transmission cut as Pathfinder rolled into another attack run, her railguns thundering. Far from the battle, beyond the settled colonies, the Sol system was waking its war machine. Slip space gates lit the void as heavy carriers, dreadnoughts, and entire wings of long-range strike cruisers assembled. Their hull markings were older, their weapon systems heavier. These were not patrol ships. These were the kind of vessels designed to break empires. And they were coming. Chapter 13. Shadows of the War Fleet, Concord Command Flagship, Varnus Sector. The battle still raged across the sector, but the Concord's attention was already drifting elsewhere. On the command deck, senior officers stood around the central holomap, murmuring in disbelief. They say the humans' real fleet is coming from their home system, one officer whispered. These ships here, the ones tearing through the Dominion, aren't even their war fleet, another replied, his voice tinged with something between awe and fear. The speaker turned to Talion. You have spoken with their captain. Can you confirm this? Talion's crystalline gaze didn't waver. She confirmed it herself. The Sol system's war fleet is inbound, no numbers given. A hush settled over the bridge. If the Frontier Defense Group, what the humans apparently considered their second string, could cut the Dominion's flank to pieces in minutes, what would the primary fleet be capable of? Vral Tin's voice broke the silence. We need to understand something. If the Warfleet arrives, the Dominion will either flee or be destroyed. There will be no stalemate. And if there is no stalemate, the speaker said slowly, the humans will have shaped the fate of the core, whether we ask them to or not. Dominion War Council. Blood-tied Admiral Varnak stared at the tactical feed, mandibles flexing in agitation. The humans were pressing harder than expected, but the reports coming from the Krith intelligence network were far worse. What do you mean this is not their war fleet? Varnak growled. Vokt's voice was sharp. Intercepted comms from Concord channels confirm it. The human core fleet, the war fleet, is mobilizing. Heavier hulls, more firepower. The kind of ships that don't get built for patrols. The Krith representative, a thin figure wrapped in segmented armor, leaned forward. If that's true, we cannot win this war by attrition. When those ships arrive, they'll push straight to our staging grounds. Varnak slammed a claw into the holotable, sending the projection rippling. Then we finish this before they get here. Hit the core hard, force the Concord to surrender before their predators arrive in force. Vokt's tone was grim. And if the humans don't wait for permission, Varnak bared his fangs, then the galaxy burns, but it burns our way. Sol System, UNS Warfleet Assembly. In the black above Neptune, slip space gates bloomed like artificial stars. Dreadnoughts the size of small cities drifted into formation, their gun decks bristling with kinetic cannons, plasma projectors, and missile bays the length of city blocks. Carrier wings deployed squadrons of fighters and gunships, their hulls marked with the insignias of Earth's old fleets. Command ship UNS Resolute, heart of the Warfleet, floated at the center of it all. Its commander, Admiral Reyes, watched the readiness reports scroll past. Every crew at combat stations, every weapon hot, every course calculated. Set jump for Concord core space, Reyes ordered. Full fleet. Aye, Admiral, came the reply. And then, to no one in particular, Reyes murmured, let's show them what we've been saving. Chapter 14, The Fleet That Ends Wars. Varnus Sector, Concord Command flagship. The battle had dragged into its third day. Dominion and Krith forces still pressed toward the core, but the pace had slowed, the humans' frontier defense group anchoring the Concord's battered left flank. Viraltin stood at the holomap when every sensor across the sector flared at once. Inbound slipspace signatures. A sensor officer reported. Multiple points, no dozens, no. He broke off, staring at the readout. Sir, hundreds. The void lit up as the UNS Warfleet arrived. They came in disciplined waves. Dreadnoughts with armored prows thick enough to shrug off plasma fire. Massive carriers spilling fighter wings into the black in perfect formation. Long, lean strike cruisers breaking into hunting packs as soon as they cleared their gates. The Concord flagship's crew stood frozen, the sheer scale of the fleet dwarfing anything the elders had deployed in living memory. Talion's crystalline features reflected the glow of human drive plumes. By the stars, they weren't exaggerating. Viraltin's voice was low. No, this is what they call war. Dominion War Council, blood-tied. The comm feeds were a storm of panicked reports. Varnak forced himself to watch the tactical display as the human war fleet formed up, their formations tight, precise, not charging in rage, but moving with the deliberate inevitability of a predator closing for the kill. Krith ships began pulling back without orders. Dominion captains shouted over each other on the war net. Vokt leaned in, her voice grim. If they press the attack now, they will cut us apart before we can regroup. Varnak's claws dug into the console. Then we don't let them regroup. Order all ships. Strike now. We break them before they bring their guns to bear. But in his gut, he already knew. They were too late. UNS Resolute, Warfleet Command Admiral Reyes, stood at the center of the command deck, hands clasped behind her back as the Dominion and Krith forces tried to surge forward. Target their command ships, she ordered. Make them blind first. Across the fleet, fire control systems locked on. A moment later, the void erupted in tungsten and plasma. Dominion flagships died in seconds, their destruction fracturing the enemy battle line. Carrier wings dove into the gaps, tearing through escorts and crippling weapons platforms. Every move was coordinated, every strike calculated. The difference between this and the frontier flotillas was stark. This was the machine humanity had built to end wars on their terms. On the Concord flagship, elder officers watched the slaughter unfold. Some were awestruck, some horrified. All understood that the galaxy had just crossed a line it could never step back from. The speaker whispered what everyone else was thinking. If this is what they bring for others' wars, what would they bring for their own? Chapter 15. The Breaking of the Invasion Varnus Sector, Outer Core Battle Space. The Dominion Krith offensive faltered the moment their command ships died. Without the central coordination of their war council, formations unraveled into scattered, frantic pockets of resistance. Admiral Reyes didn't slow the attack. Press them. Don't give them time to think. Human strike cruisers surged forward in wolfpack formations, lancing into exposed flanks and burning through ship after ship with precise surgical violence. Dreadnoughts advanced in the center, absorbing plasma and missile fire that would have crippled lesser vessels, their guns answering with relentless earth-shaking salvos. On the Concord flagship, the battle holomap was awash in red, enemy hulls blinking out in clusters. An elder fleet captain stared at the readout. They're breaking the invasion in hours. Hours. Vraltin didn't look away from the display. For us, it would have taken months, and we would have lost half the core in the process. Talian's voice was flat. They are not fighting to save the Concord. They are fighting to destroy the enemy. And they're doing it better than we ever could, Vraltin replied. Dominion War Council. Aboard remaining flagship, Varnak's personal guard pulled him toward the slipspace gate, even as the war fleet closed in. What's left of the invasion? He demanded. Less than a third, Voth answered grimly, and falling by the minute. The Krith liaison broke in over the channel, his voice tight with barely restrained panic. Pull back now or we lose everything. Varnak looked once more at the tactical feed, at the gray hulls closing in from every vector, and gave the order. UNS Resolute, Warfleet Command. Enemy signatures were vanishing across the board, either destroyed or retreating in disarray. Status? Reyes asked. Dominion Krith Fleet in full withdrawal, her operations chief replied. We could pursue and finish them. Reyes hesitated for only a moment. No, let them run. This wasn't about erasing them. It was about making sure they never think they can do this again. Concord flagship, observation deck. The speaker stood with Talion and Vraltin, watching as the warfleet regrouped. They fought without our orders, without our sanction, the speaker said quietly, and yet they have saved the core. Talion's crystalline eyes narrowed. Then the question becomes, what will they do now that they know they can? Vraltin kept his gaze on the human formations, already reforming for their next move. Perhaps, he said, we should be asking what they were planning to do all along. Chapter 16. The Next Blow. Concord Flagship. Observation deck. The speaker's private reception chamber was tense. Admiral Reyes stood opposite the Concord's senior counselors, Vraltin at her side. Through the crystal pane windows, the war fleet hung in disciplined formation, their drive flares dimmed but ready to burn at a moment's notice. You had the enemy surrounded, the speaker began, her voice cool, and yet you let them retreat. Was that mercy? Reyes' expression didn't change. No, it was positioning. Positioning? Saren's tone was skeptical. Reyes clasped her hands behind her back. The fleets you saw here today were only the 2nd and 5th. The 1st, 3rd, and 4th are already en route to Dominion and Krith home systems. They will arrive within the week. The room went still. They will not be fighting through defenses, Reyes continued evenly. By the time they arrive, those defenses will be bypassed or neutralized. Their mission is simple: demand unconditional surrender. If it's refused, they will ensure the enemy can't make war again for generations. The crystalline planes of Talion's face caught the light as she stared at the Admiral. You would strike at their homeworlds? They started this war by targeting yours, Reyes replied. We're ending it by making sure they can never try again. Vraltin's mandibles clicked softly. And if they surrender? Reyes met his gaze without hesitation. Then they live. But they'll live under the understanding that if they ever return to their old ways, humanity will be back, and next time, we won't stop. The speaker leaned back, clearly unsettled. You plan your wars like a predator. Reyes allowed herself the faintest smile. No. Predators hunt for food. We hunt so we never have to hunt again. Outside the chamber, the war fleet held its silent vigil over the liberated core. Some elders saw them as saviors. some as conquerors waiting for an excuse. But all now understood one thing. Humanity didn't fight battles to win territory. They fought to end wars entirely, and they were willing to take that fight anywhere it needed to go. Chapter 17. The Knock at the Door. Dominion Homeworld, Orbit of Karak. Prime slipspace gates flared like novas in the black, disgorging the First Fleet in perfect battle formation. Dreadnoughts emerged first, followed by heavy carriers and missile cruisers, each locking into position with mechanical precision. Their drive signatures alone dwarfed the Dominion's planetary defense grid. On the bridge of the flagship UNS Avenger, Fleet Admiral Sato stood before the comm array. Open channel, all frequencies. The Dominion High Council appeared on the main display. Armored figures framed by the jagged steel arches of their war chamber. Admiral Varnak was among them, his mandibles tense. Sato's voice was level, every word deliberate. This is the United Naval Command of Sol. You have 24 standard hours to transmit your unconditional surrender to the Concord and to humanity. Failure to comply will result in the complete dismantling of your war capacity, beginning with this system, Varnak hissed. This is our home. You would burn it? Sato didn't blink. If it means no more invasions, yes. Krith Accord Capital, Orbit of Veshna. The Third Fleet and Fourth Fleet emerged together, their arrival blotting out the light from the planet's primary moon. The Krith defense stations lit up with targeting locks, and then one by one they went dark as human ECM blanketed the system. On the Krith homeworld's command nexus, the Accord's High Premier watched in stunned silence as her tactical displays dissolved into static. Vice Admiral Torres of the Fourth Fleet sent a single transmission. No negotiations, no conditions, total surrender, or your fleets will not exist by tomorrow's moonrise. The Premier whispered to her aides, they've already taken the skies. 20 hours later, on Karak Prime, the Dominion's council chambers were in chaos. Some demanded resistance, to die with honor. Others saw the hollows of human fleets parked in high orbit and argued that no honor remained in being annihilated for pride. Varnak spoke at last, his voice low. We fought to keep them out of the core. We failed. Fight now, and the Karak people will cease to exist. We surrender. On Veshna, the Krith were faster to decide. They transmitted their surrender orders within 6 hours, the Premier's voice trembling as she acknowledged humanity's terms. UNS Avenger. First Fleet flagship Sato received both transmissions within minutes of each other. Transmit to all fleets. Objectives achieved. Begin demobilization operations and weapons deactivation on site. The Concord will handle the rest. An aide hesitated. Sir, they'll hate us for this. Sato nodded slightly. They can hate us all they want. They just won't be able to fight us. Chapter 18. The Long Peace. The war ended not with a climactic final battle, but with paperwork, escorts, and an unyielding schedule of disarmament. Human fleets did not strip the Dominion or Krith worlds bare, nor did they take tribute. Instead, they dismantled shipyards, destroyed weapons stockpiles, and oversaw the repurposing of military foundries into civilian industry. To the aggressor races, it was a humiliation, but a strangely measured one. They had expected occupation, exploitation, or conquest. Instead, the humans simply stayed, long enough to make sure the change held. On Karak Prime, Admiral Varnak met with human officers in what had once been the Dominion's war planning hall. Now it was filled with civilian architects and agricultural planners. You fight wars like no one else, Varnak said one day to Commander Hal Bishop, who had been assigned to the Transition Council. I thought your talk of protecting innocence was just a cover. But now, I see that's simply what you are. Bishop shrugged. We stop wars because we've seen what happens when no one does. That's it. No more complicated than that. On Veshna, Vice Admiral Torres walked with the Krith Premier through shipyards now building passenger liners instead of missile frigates. You've left us our fleets for trade, the Premier said, still puzzled. No hidden guns? No secret demands? Torres gave a thin smile. We don't need to hide anything. We meant what we said. Don't start another war, and you'll never see our fleets again. Years passed. The Concord slowly integrated the Dominion and Krith into trade routes instead of war corridors. Humanity reduced its presence system by system, leaving behind small liaison teams and joint patrols where old tensions ran high. And gradually, respect began to replace fear. The elders, so long convinced that humanity's nature was duality, predator and builder, began to see that the two halves were not at odds. They were one and the same. Humanity could destroy when needed, but they could also rebuild with equal dedication. By the time the war fleet finally withdrew to Sol, the galaxy was different. No one called the Dominion or Krith aggressors anymore, just neighbors. The Concord still debated the wisdom of letting humanity stand unbound, but even the staunchest opponents could not deny the results. Humanity had no empire, no colonies taken in war, only the quiet, enduring promise they had made from the beginning. If the innocent are in danger, we will come. And for the first time in centuries, the Concord believed them.